I would like to know a little bit of who's in front of me before we start our session officially. Because I've seen some very young people here, which is wonderful. And their salute will look like this. This means my children are still only a twinkle in somebody's eye. Okay, that's your sign. So if that is you, can you give me a I don't have children yet salute? Thank you so much. All right. Then there are people who are in a phase where, you know, we're almost there. So I want you to give me this tummy salute if that's where you are. The responsible gentleman's welcome to make the same salute. Thank you very much. Okay, I can see a few of you. And then also, if you're still in a phase where you have a baby mostly in your arm, I'd like to do the cradle salute. Can you do that for me? We've got some cradle salutes. And then the hip salute, you know, when you're still carrying them, you can do the hip salute. Your hip will be somewhere next to you on the chair if that's the phase you are in. And then some of you are in a phase where you're mostly driving kids around. Can I see, you know, the ones who are in school? All right, lots of you. And then the last salute for the parents of teenagers and young adults is this one. It's where you hope they'll be back for dinner, but you can't see them coming down the road yet. So that's your salute, some of you. Wonderful. I think we are well represented in all the phases of family. I pray that these keys that we're going to share with each other now will make sense somewhere to each and every one of you. We're going to start with the first key right away. It's called play. And it's something I'm really bad at. And just by the way, if you think you are going to score 10 out of 10 on the keys, we'll give you an opportunity at the end to take a bow. I don't expect too many of you doing the bow salute, but we'll give you that opportunity. Please don't see this as a test. Please don't feel guilty if one of these things are not in place. Just make a little note in the back of your mind that says, this is something else I can try. To add something to my family, or to remember when I have a family for the ones with the salute. Right. The first one is play. It is the most powerful thing. It links somewhat with what the Lord said when he said, what the prophet said when he said, the joy of the Lord is my strength. Because joy and fun opens up a child's heart like nothing else can. When you have a child who has a learning disability, emotional challenges, a broken home, say a condition such as ADHD or whatever you would think would make it extremely difficult for a child to learn, the moment you play with that child, everything opens up. The heart, the soul, the spirit, the mind, all of the channels of learning. There are children who are in the best possible schools with the best teachers and who have the most fantastic parents who can tell them everything that is right. But nothing goes in because of one of these things that I've mentioned or a combination of all of them. But if you can get on a trampoline with that child at 11 o'clock at night and hop around a little bit, and then use a little pillow as a prop and pretend that it's an earring and that it's a horse and whatever else. I can see some of you going, what? Yes, exactly that. Try and do something with the pillow so that your 3-year-old can guess, you're riding a horse. Play. Find the child in you, because I have a suspicion that only children can really touch children. And you and I do have a child in us that can reach out to children. And by the way, some of you are parents to children that are not your own. And these keys are for you as well. Sometimes you as a youth worker or a Sunday school teacher will have more of a connection with the child than the parents themselves because you can play. Don't ever underestimate the spiritual value of such a simple thing. The second key is eating together. And when you do research about this, it's absolutely fascinating because there's hardly a thing that you want to see in your sons and daughters that will not be, to some extent, supported by this one good habit of families eating together. It's a beautiful thing that happens. You don't just eat together to make sure that your child knows how to chew or how to operate, a knife and fork in the British fashion. But that's not what dinner times are about. It's not about teaching your kids how to use the utensils. It's about looking them in the eye for 20 minutes at a time to see what is going on, to hear what is going on, to connect. And I think maybe most of all, to convey that message just for this little while when we're together around this table. Nothing else is more important than family. It's important to communicate that to a child, to have a pause somewhere for a child to open up, because everything else happens so fast that it's possible that a child goes to bed tonight with just one little thing he wanted to tell you, but there was never enough of a gap where your mouth was closed that he could say it. Or maybe it's just me, but that's definitely the case in my family. So while mommy's chewing on her food, her children have an opportunity to say what's on their heart. I've looked at research by universities, by the Barna Institute, by a gentleman whose name is Califano, or his surname is Califano, who headed a drug rehab center for teens in America for 30 years. And all of their research had the same conclusion. Nothing makes a bigger difference in family than eating together. And then they gave a whole list of differences that it makes that I'm only going to share a few of. But it trumped a good education and a private school. It trumped an IQ. It trumped the financial position of the parents. It trumped whether the kid was a single child or in a big family. You could put down any factor next to it. Nothing is more important. And it is actually fairly simple, isn't it? Until you try it and you see everything you have to fight to be able to protect this sacred time to have a dinner together. I've just listed a few interesting things that I found. Girls eating with their parents have fewer body issues. Do you think body issues is a big deal? It's a huge deal. It's scary. It is immensely important to our daughters. Our sons will eat more veggies. Yes, it's as easy as that. Just sit with them. I know why it is. It's because you tell them we're going to sit here until mold grows on your peas, but we're going to have it. That's why they eat more veggies. It's just because the parents there, and the parents probably armed. And then, it's not really that, but it could be. Fewer teen pregnancies. Is that important? Do you know why? Because if you start a habit of being okay with your kids not being home when it's already dark, you are on a slippery slope very quickly. So just having dinner together in the evening means your children are home when all the evil things creep out of the shadows. Your child's in your house. That's, I think, one of the reasons why it is so powerful. But also because the conversations take place that will make your child resilient and able to resist temptation. Fewer suicides. Because it's hardly possible for you not to realize my child's not okay. Because last night, this is what he behaved like. Today, he doesn't want to touch his food. And sometimes it's more subtle than that, but I bet that if you see your child every day, for that 20 minutes, you will see something. You will notice something. Also, something that saddens me is the kids that we find are most vulnerable to the possibility of suicide are not the kids that are constantly negative, telling you they want to die and life is too hard and there's nothing that's ever fun and it's the worst hour of their entire life. It's not those kids. It's more often the children who don't know how to talk about what's bothering them. The ones who don't let you know their life sucks. But it does suck. They just don't know how to tell you. And those are the kids who depend on us to notice that something is amiss. And we don't notice when we're just moving so fast. And what is the biggest enemy of dinners together? What is it? Not even TV. Sports. and other cultural activities, the things we think will develop our children into fully formed human beings. It's the activities, all of these educational and developmental things that we believe is more important to our children than spending time with us. It's a mistake. And it's a culture that is forming that we need to fight, because it is taking our children out of our houses from 7 in the morning till 7 in the evening and every weekend. It's dangerous. We see less drug addiction in those kids because why do you think they use drugs in the morning or in the early afternoon? No, it happens mostly in the evening when they're out from under your supervision and they're not at school. They're in that place in between where teenagers hang if you don't expect them to be home for dinner. Less alcohol use in teens, it'll go with that. And as a result of all of these things, later sexual activity in kids. The average age for becoming sexually active goes up and up and up and up in a straight line in comparison with how many evenings a week do these kids spend having dinner with their parents. It's a wake-up call, but it's a simple thing. We can all fight to do this more. Our third key is to make simple rules together. And when we do that, just by the way, that's a little umbrella. We call these rules umbrella rules. It's something we do with evergreen parents when they do our evergreen parenting course. We let them sit with their kids and explain that God's whole idea with rules was never to make life boring. Never. His idea with rules is always to make life safe and joyful and fair to everybody. Because the idea of saying you're not allowed to divorce someone or break up a marriage wasn't so that you would grow old with a boring person. That was not the intention. It was so that you would make a decision that you will keep exploring what is not boring about that person, and that you will make it interesting, and that you will be committed for the sake of the entire community and especially the children. God's idea with rules was to create a place and a community that is safe. So when we make rules in a house, keep that in mind. And you can even ask the kids, what would make our home a nice and safe place for you to be in? And then they will, I can guarantee it, come up with an idea such as, I don't want anybody bothering me when I'm playing on my computer. It makes me feel unsafe. And then we can talk about, yes, that's a good idea. We should have a time for everything we do. How many of you have been to Switzerland? Did you know that ski holidays or something, is that something Shofar does? Looks like it. Do you know that you don't have to pay tax in Switzerland? You can pitch up at the till with your passport that proves that you are not a Swiss citizen, and they will deduct the tax right there and give you the tax-free price instead. Fortunately, somebody told me that, and it was very convenient when Lou and I went there for our 20th anniversary to not pay tax on anything. It's lovely. Children act like your house or your classroom or your school or your church is Switzerland when they don't feel like a citizen. And to feel like a citizen, they need to have ownership. They need to be involved in the discussion of rules in the house. And you won't do everything they say, but you will involve them so that they feel like they had a say. Otherwise, you'll have kids who act like they're from another country, something you don't want. Simplicity, keeping rules uncomplicated. Because you can have a million rules, such as no forks in your hair, no picking your nose, no flushing the toilet only once, twice please, and nonsense like that. We can have lists and lists of things like that. But when we keep it principled, keeping in mind it should be safe, and keeping in mind the children need to participate and the rules need to count for everybody, big and small, then we'll end up with something that's worth keeping. Always have conversations about the rules over and over again. Deuteronomy 6 teaches us that. The Lord said, first write the rules on your own heart, and then write them on the hearts of your children. And I'm paraphrasing now. But it says, keep talking about those things, the principles behind them, the value of it, the reasons why we do this. When you get up, when you're on your way, when you're returning, when you go to bed. And that doesn't mean that we're constantly preaching, don't do this and don't do that. We're constantly drawing a picture of the safe and happy family to give children a perspective on how our rules in our house fit into that. That's the idea. Dance together. Not literally, no. I'm not a dancer, and some of you may not be. But family life is a bit like a dance in the sense that there is a rhythm, or there should be a rhythm. Initially, when you have little ones, do you remember the ones who are already in this phase? Do you remember what it was like when you had to convince them to go to the bath and to go to bed, and everything is so thoroughly resisted? Do you remember that? Then after a while, they kind of get the rhythm and they stop rebelling against it because it becomes pointless to do it, because the dance is going to go on. The dance is not going to stop. All of these rhythms are going to be kept. It's a wonderful thing when a family dances together, because what it does is it fosters better learning. It has been proven that babies that grow up in a routine are smarter because their life is predictable. And the same words and language and happenings recur in a nice little dance. And they know what life is about, and they feel safe, and they understand, and they can predict, and they can make inferences, and they are far ahead of the kids that have a random life. Rhythm gives security. It gives a time for fun. Because if you're not constantly trying to get kids through everything in a different manner and fighting them for control of your household, you're done by 7 o'clock or you're done by 8 o'clock, and you can just do something fun together. You have kids who don't need to be fought and pulled along and pushed along all the time. And there's time, we call it fountain time where you can just sit with your kids, enjoy each other, and talk. A rhythm creates less resistance because kids figure out there's no point in resisting. And eventually, because they stop resisting, they learn good habits, and those good habits turn into character. Do you think it's possible to have godly character if you have no discipline? It's going to be hard. Rhythm is how you teach discipline. Discipline comes at the end of the dance. That is when children automatically help around the house, automatically do their chores, automatically do what they're supposed to do without you telling them. We don't want just obedience kids telling you or doing what you tell them. When you say, okay, left, right, okay, now turn. Can you imagine how annoying a dance concert would be if you had to listen to all the cues constantly of somebody telling the dancers what to do? It would be awful to watch. But some of our kids are like that. They can't dance unless you're screaming at them, okay, now your left foot, now your right foot. No, there's no character there. But if you can keep a constant rhythm in your house, your child will dance all by himself. The next key is working together. Now that I'm good at. I like to work. The play part's very hard for me, but the working together is easy for me because I don't want to do all the work myself. So it comes fairly naturally for me to involve my kids in jobs around the house. But I also grew up that way. And I never understood why my parents used us as unpaid slaves, because that's what it felt like. I had a huge problem with it. I really thought, what did we do to deserve this? We go to school and it's so much harder than actual real life, And then we come home and we have homework, and I don't see my parents having any homework. And then we have to clean plates and things. It's awful. I really felt that there was something massively wrong with this design for family. And I, of course, believed only my parents did this. That was the other conviction I had. And then one evening, everything changed because we had an orphan at our house. I still remember to this day, his name was Rudy. And I remember looking at his clothes in the bathroom and seeing all the little holes in his underwear and thinking, you know, if my mom could see this, she would feel so guilty for giving him dishwashing duty this evening. Because I just heard before we started eating, my mom said, Rudy, tonight you are going to do the dishes after dinner. It was his first night out of the orphanage in our house. I was mortified. But you know what I saw that night? I saw the fruit of my mom's wisdom. Because Rudy stood at the dishwasher, the sink, and he put those plates in the rack like this. And he kept counting them as he put a new plate in there. And he never said it, but what I saw was him telling himself, I'm in a family of 7 tonight. I'm now part of this family. That's what happens when children work together. They become citizens of the country. They become members of the family. We make a big mistake by just having our kids bored at our house. They come in, they dump dirty washing, they grab a ready-made meal from the fridge, they wave, and they drive off with a car that we put the petrol in for them. It's not how you prepare kids for life. You prepare them by working together, because what they learn in the process is that work isn't slavery, work is significance. Work was given in paradise before sin. It was part of God's character. He made us in His image, and He's a working and active God, which I'm sure you've all noticed. And it's part of His image in us that we can work and are allowed to work and can be creative and constructive. It's a God thing. And children need to understand that the more, and actually they know it and they can teach us a lesson or two. They know that the more you can do, the more significant you become. And the bigger your contribution can be, the bigger difference you can make. So what do you do when a child doesn't want to work? You say, you know what, if you don't want to brush your teeth, do you remember what we did? We just made sure you did it at least twice a day until you got used to it. So what we're going to do now is we're going to increase your workload slightly. Because what you do not have at the moment is a good work ethic. And that's our responsibility to instill this in you. So we're going to practice really hard until you've got it down. And down means you respond kindly, you do it to the best of your ability, with a beautiful attitude. And not at your earliest convenience, but as soon as possible. So when we've got that down and we see that attitude written on your face, then we've got a work ethic, then we can ease up on the slavery at home. But up until that point, you're going to practice how to do what God's word says. Do everything as unto the Lord without complaining. That's a God-given instruction. And that's what we are training in our children. And I promise you, the earlier you begin, the easier it is. Because 2-year-olds and 3-year-olds want to help. They want to work. They know that there's significance and meaning in it. Use it. It builds their home's economy. Economy also exists in a family. There's only so many hours, only, limited material resources and limited energy. And that's what economy consists of. Man hours, manpower, and finances. A house is exactly the same. And every child needs to contribute to the economy of the household. So if you can't bring in money, you have to bring in manpower. It's very simple. It's about economy, and it is a definite fact that each one of your children, no matter what their age, they can make a difference. Because even if they just bring you a cup of tea when you've done all the work, they're still adding to the economy of the household, because your energy comes back and you can go right back to work and they can, go make tea again or whatever. Work builds skill. I've been shocked to see teenagers trying to put together a vacuum cleaner. They have never seen one. It only gets out of the mysterious cupboard. They don't know where it is kept when they're at school. And before they're back, it has magically, vanished and the carpets are clean. They have no idea how it happened. It's simple. It builds skills. It builds responsibility. There's no other way to build it. And it builds character. Because none of those jobs are a lot of fun. And one of the most key things in life when it comes to character is being able to do what is no fun. Being able to do with a beautiful attitude something that won't serve you at all. Because if you've vacuumed a carpet that's not even in your room, it has no benefit for you whatsoever. But to be able to do that joyfully, that's character. Because I don't just cook for myself. I don't just earn money and put it in my bank account and keep it away from my husband and children. I serve them with what I earn, with what I can add to the economy. Children should do the same. And then another key, and you'll see I'm going fast, to teaching this kind of responsibility is to go through a number of steps. So first of all, the first step is watch me. So this is where the child is outside of burning distance and you are showing the child how to not iron over the buttons and whatever. So you're doing the lesson, watch me. That is step one. What's the bad news about this? Everything's going to take about 10 times as long for the first few training sessions, isn't it? Yes. That's why we don't train our kids in doing things around the house, because we can do it faster. Big mistake, because then we'll have to do it forever. Have you ever said to somebody, no, don't show me how to do that, because if I know how to do it, then I have to do it. Then I'll get the job. The kids will do exactly that. No, I don't want to know. I don't care. I'm not so very interested in ironing. It's because I know that once they know how, you're going to use that skill. But anyhow, you're going to show them how, and then you're going to have them do it with you. Together. More time. Another reason not to let your child have 7 winter talents and 7 summer talents in development constantly, so that you'll have time for training. And then you stand back a little, because the third step is show me how you do it. And this is where you just go, oof, I think this thing is silk, so let's just turn down that thing from 3 dots to 1 dot, so we don't make plastic today. And then after a while, if this child is old enough, you'll grit your teeth and go stand around the corner and say, call me if you need me. And then you'll put your nose in the air and make sure you respond if something smells wrong. But that's the hardest part of parenting, is when you've handed over a responsibility, not to rush back and save them, but to stand around a corner and let them burn your new pajamas once so they can learn that 3 dots doesn't mean it goes 3 times as fast. It really means it goes black. So you have to have them have that experience of how this works. And then lastly, so important, if you are ever going to have responsible kids, you have to be encouraging. It means that whenever they try, you have to acknowledge the effort. And you don't have to lie. If they burnt it, you can't say, good job. No, you can say, I'm so glad you tried. What have we learned? What are we going to do different next time? It's okay for you to coach through that last step. But be appreciative for the effort and never, ever punish a child who tried to add to the family and got it wrong. If you are a perfectionist, send in the other parent. That is the single most important benefit of the double parent family, is that you can decide who's the best suited for whatever job. And if you know that you are going to faint at how your child does the ironing, leave. And let the other parent who doesn't smell burn and whatever, let that parent stand there. Because children who figure out it's never good enough, never try again. Parenting together is something Westerners are notoriously bad at. I love this quote. Have you heard? It's an African saying that says it takes a village to raise a child. And then this little joke says, until somebody suggests a different way for you to raise your kids, in that case, it takes only you and they must all stand back and keep quiet. And it is like that. We're awfully threatened when somebody makes a suggestion about something we should maybe have a look at with our kids. Have you been offended by other parents who are trying to tell you what to do with your children? I have. It's one of the things that I remember most clearly of being in the States, because we would be on an escalator, and I would have my child by the hand, and some very sweet person would step up and say, I would prefer if you carried your child. And I'd think, I would prefer if you kept your own business, it's my child. And then, just a day later, I'd be walking along the street and a car would screech to a halt and somebody would roll down the window and say, I'd prefer if you walked a little further from the tarred road. And I think, I'd prefer if you just drove on and left me to raise my own kids. We don't like people telling us how they would prefer for us to do this or the other thing with our kids. But there is so much value in that, because I think in a certain sense, our kids are too close for us to really see them clearly. We need other people. That's why we have church. We need other people that we are in a relationship with to come and say something such as, I know that you have stood up against manipulation in your house many times. Do you think maybe your teen just manipulated you for that new cell phone by pulling all those faces at the one he currently has? Perhaps, maybe. Can we be grown up enough to let people speak to us like that? We have to. We have to, because we are oblivious sometimes to the tricks our children have, and we need other people to help us. It's also just a manpower issue. We cannot always be with our kids. We need other people to be an extension of our hand. And what better place than in a community of believers where we hopefully share the same value system? It's a brilliant thing. I want to challenge you to go to another couple or to another single person, doesn't really matter, a teacher, a leader at the church, and say, I want to submit the way I parent to you in an accountability relationship. And I give you permission to tell me when you see something I might be missing. What a wonderful gift you could give a family if you can help them keep their walls up. Pride is not compatible with parenting. It is not. You don't want the Lord to allow your child to bring you to your knees. Rather do it voluntarily, because it will be done. Another key is to fight 3 particular monsters together. Just very briefly, I don't think if you've dealt with these 3 monsters in our house, that there will be a lot to fight with or fight for after that. It makes an enormous difference. But if both parents and children stop using their whiny voices, everything changes. Everything. The second one is screaming. It works like this. When you speak to your children, you use a very polite tone with an inflection at the end that lets your child know, I don't really mean it, I'm just making a suggestion. Because I've come into the house and I've said, do you want to go to the bath? Nah, probably not. Then I say, after 10 minutes, did I say it's bath time? And the kids can't remember whether it was said, probably not. And then you lift your decibel level with about maybe 10 dBs, and you say, I want to see some feet going in that direction. They still don't know what you're saying. They're just something about feet, not quite clear. Very unspecific, probably not their feet, somebody else's feet. There's a lot of things in that direction, including the TV, so it's probably not a problem. And then at some point you lose it and you hit 80 dB. And your hair frizzes and your makeup melts. And the kids know that's the sign we've been waiting for. It's probably bath time. And off they go. And then you come to me for a parenting consultation and you tell me, you know what, unless I scream and act all hysterical, nothing happens in my house. But you have trained your kids that is the way it's going to be. The alternative would have been you stepping into the house, giving a clear and calm command that says, kids, it is 5 o'clock, it is bedtime, whose turn is it to run the bath? And to wait for a response and to send them on their merry way in no uncertain terms. This is where you're going, this is what's happening now. And then if there isn't action, to act and say, you have not gone to the bath when you were supposed to, which affects the whole evening routine, so there will be no story time tonight. Tomorrow we'll try again, go to the bath on time, and then we'll probably have a story time. Calm at 20, 25 decibel at the most. Nothing more than that. It's not necessary. I was a screamer, and I still have the tendency, it's very easy for me to do. I tried everything. You can try to drive out that demon, you can do Bible study, you can have people lay on your hands. It doesn't really work. I've tried it. It doesn't work. But what did work was I went to my kids and said, I'm screaming because it works. I need you to help me by not letting it work. So next time I scream, I want you to just turn on your heel and say, excuse me, and leave, and not do what I screamed. Because that is what I do when they scream. I say, excuse me, I can't listen to a screaming voice. I'll come back when you've calmed down. Isn't that what we do with our kids? Yes, so why can't they do that with us? I tell you, my little Piru, my son, turned around on his heel twice saying, excuse me, you screaming? And I was healed. Instantly, miraculously healed. It never happened again. And you can ask my children, you can ask them, when was the last time your mother screamed? And they won't remember the year. And it's not because I'm a saint, it's because it stopped working. And when it's not effective, we stop. Blaming is the other thing. Because what goes along with that is, look what you made me do. Look at me. I'm a raving lunatic because of you. No, it's not because of you. It's my anger. It's my control issues. It's my poor communication. It's my loss of self-control. It's not somebody else's. But that we as parents understand the boundary between what my children can make me do and what I can make them do. Because there are limits. If I draw a boundary for my child and he has a meltdown, I should be able to still have the best day of my life. Looking at this child's meltdown and saying to myself, it's so tough to be 4 years old. It's going to be so much easier when you're older. Shame. Poor you. Without feeling like I did something wrong. I should probably go into a renegotiation of this boundary. No, I shouldn't. Because the way my child responds to a no is his problem. If I know the no is reasonable, I have to stick to it. No matter what kind of smoke screen my child puts up. No matter what the emotional bomb, if it's reasonable, I should be able to sit back and say, I knew I did the right thing now. I know I did the right thing, so I'm not going to back off. My child's response is his problem. When my child fails math, my response is my problem. Do you understand? The way I respond then, I own that. It's not my child's fault if I lose it in that situation. We don't blame each other for our bad behavior. Stand together. Just in closing very quickly, can you, where you're sitting now, say what you as a family stand for, the way Josh has said, as for me and my house, we will serve the Lord? Have you ever officially said, this is what our family stands for? This is a stand we have made, and I don't know how formally we've really made it. And in practice, I know we can do it more. But when I thought what I would like to talk more of with my family, it's this. I want us to be a family who stands in prayer, who stands for truth, against fear, because we think fear is a stronghold over this country. So we want to give it a good push back in our house and to stand for others. Very simple. I want to challenge you to go home and just put in writing and make it official what you as a family stand for. And then bow together, which means practice respect together. I love the Eastern habit of bowing when you acknowledge somebody, when you're greeting. Because what bowing does is you submit your comfort, your preferences, your self-centeredness to another person. Because when you bow, you're vulnerable. Somebody can hit you over the head. They can walk away and leave you embarrassed as you come up. Where did she go? Bowing is a way of humbling yourself. And I like it because, in a sense, that is what all of us need to do if we're going to get along in a family. And we do that in very practical ways. We respect each other's time, which means if somebody says, I really would love to hear what you have to say, but I can't do it right now, that you and I need to respect that and allow that. That we respect each other's space. Knock on a door before you come in. Ask, Mom, may I play in your room? Before you just assume it is okay. Possessions. May I borrow this? May I borrow that? May I sit on your bed? Dignity. One day I asked my then 3-year-old, Simone, I asked her, Simone, do you know what respect is? And she said, yes, it's when you talk nice to me. 3-year-old knew it. And I said, when do I talk nice to you? She said, when you call me Simone and not Simmy. I had to reprogram myself. She didn't want to be called Simmy. She wanted to be Simone. If that makes her feel respected, then I have to do that even if she's 3 years old. Call her by her real name if that is what she wants. It's not an unfair request. But to respect that person's dignity. Because I asked her, why not Simmy? She said, it sounds small. I had to bite my lip not to say, you are small. But anyways, dignity. And then privacy. And I put a question mark after privacy. Because privacy is dangerous. I do not want you to respect your teenager's cell phone privacy. How about a rule in your house that anybody can check anybody's cell phone at any time? Think about it for a little bit. I bet your teenager would accept that more readily than he would just you digging around his Facebook. But say, you know what? Those platforms where you and I can sin and communicate in ways we shouldn't, probably, and slander and flirt. How about we open that up to each other as an accountability thing? And we say all phones on the dining room table at 9 p.m. until you get up tomorrow morning. Just a suggestion, just a thought. We have to grow together. Growing together means the following. If you don't plant in your garden everything in its place, and the plants have to compete for sunlight, some things will shoot up and other things will just shrivel. It's the same in a household. It's the same in a family. If you can just let the sun shine on a certain type of child, that child will thrive. And the others who don't have the personality type or the talents or the interests that you think counts for something will shrivel up in your garden. And when you look out the window, it'll all look green, but they will be here somewhere under that child that you like more or approve of more or understand better. So important that every child has a place, equally valued. Acceptance is the key word here. Accommodate. Accommodate what that child is all about. That is how a plant grows. No, none of us will ever take a little potted plant and put it out in the garden. We will take it out of the pot. And that is what parenting is about. It's taking your child out of the pot. Adaptation is about changing the way you do family so that each child has a contribution. That is how you grow. Children are not the ones who need to adapt to us. It's the other way around. We've had our chance to grow up. It's now their chance. We can adapt to make sure that they can be all that they were supposed to be. And alignment is the last word that I want to say something about. And that is, do you know that your child is magnetized because of the way God has made him, with a certain drive, a certain interest, a certain set of characteristics? Your child has a north, a magnetic north, that may be 180 degrees removed from yours. Family is not about aligning everybody to move in the same direction, namely your or my north. It is about looking at what that needle, like a compass needle, does in each child and aligning that child to his purpose that God has created him for or her for. Which means one child will be going this way and that one will be going that way. And I know it's inconvenient because it might literally mean you homeschool one child and the other one goes to this school and the other one goes to that school. In practical terms, that could happen. It could happen that you really have to put in an effort to support an interest in a child that you think is completely senseless. But it's what makes that child tick. That is a healthy family where there is space for everybody to grow into what God made them to be. I'm going to put up on the screen just those 10 keys as a kind of a recap, and I would like you to ask questions about those that you may have.
I just have two questions. The one is, I have a small baby. Before I had a baby, I had opinions about people's children, but now that I have a baby, I realize it was often wrong. So I'm wondering if you pick a couple to be accountable to, should their children be older than yours, how much older, that kind of thing. My other question was, just in terms of a healthy family, I'd like to hear your opinion on the amount of time the mom spends at home. So there's opinions about working mothers, non-working mothers, everything in between. What's the godly response to that?
I would choose somebody older. It's wonderful when you are in a group of people in the similar phase. That's also very valuable. But I would choose somebody who's in the next phase. So if you have a baby, somebody with a toddler. If you have a toddler, somebody with a primary school kid, etc. One phase ahead of you. Not too far, because we always look with rose-tinted glasses at, we forgot how hard it was, or we forget how hard it was very quickly. So one phase ahead of you, I think, would make the most sense. And then the second question was about moms spending time at home versus working part-time or full-time. My experience growing up was that if a mom is at home and she's frustrated, it's pointless. What the children feel is, I am the reason you're not happy. They're not feeling, wow, it's wonderful to have my mom at home. Be with your children in a positive, constructive, focused, available way. My dad worked 2 jobs and had a choir all his life, conducted many choirs all his life, had choir practice 3 nights a week, from before my birth till just the other day. And my experience of him is an experience of ever present. But when I try to remember what he did, I remember things like him sneaking into my room when I was already asleep and rubbing my feet in winter until I fell asleep again. That probably took 2 minutes. But that's one of my fondest memories. And that's my proof that my dad was there for me. But it took him 2 minutes to prove it. It's about the way in which you are present, more than what the watch says. But I want to qualify quickly and just say, if you know the temperament of your child, it makes it easier as that baby grows older, because some children need a long time with you before they open up. Other kids can play with you for 2 minutes and be all filled up and ready to rock for another week. So it will also depend, on the type of child you have. Because if you spoke to my siblings and you asked them about the availability of my dad, we will probably each give a different answer because of that difference.
I have to giggle about the one about letting the children have their own creativity. My son arrived on a bus this morning with a tuba, a huge tuba. But what I wanted to talk about is that I think you've said phenomenal things. I'm in that phase. I think we also have to, when we come to that grow period, and to do with respect, is that we also have to let go. And that if we have put these keys into place, there is also a time to allow those keys to actually happen. Because if we don't let them work those things out themselves, they are never going to be functioning adults. So I think that's just important to mention, letting go.
I absolutely agree with you. And those of you attending tomorrow's elective, it's going to be much more teenager focused on equipping them morally, equipping them in principle to take responsibility for their lives. And you're right, letting go is then the hardest part of being a good parent at that phase. The father of the prodigal son loved him enough to let him go. He could have stopped him. He could have said no. But there was a reason he said yes.
What if the tables have kind of turned and like your mom is the one who goes to bed late or is on her phone late, on chat rooms or smoking?
Listen, I'm so sorry. With this echo, I feel like I can't hear a word. Is it just me or is it with you as well?
I don't know.
It's a half-second difference. Let me just see if I stand here. Maybe I can hear you.
Okay, can you hear me now? Okay, what if the tables have kind of turned, like maybe in the last 5 years, and your mom is the one who goes out and will come home late, or she's the one who's on her phone and like doesn't allow you to like call your friend, or and like you now, like if your mom's out and you cooking dinner like for your dad who's gonna come home, like what's up with that?
Very brave question and very valid. If you didn't all hear clearly, she asked, what if there's a role reversal in the house? Mom's going through a second teenager phase. She's going out at night. She's on the phone constantly. She's irresponsible and you are cooking at home. I wish I didn't hear this often, but I do hear it very often. You cannot go into a parenting role with your parent. That's the short answer. Because the sad thing is, the parent cannot be reparented by a child, even though you are more of an adult sitting there than your mom would ever understand. But you cannot take responsibility for your parent. It will take you into a cycle where you will never have a healthy family of your own. So as harsh as this may seem, you have to get support for yourself, a mentor who is acting responsibly and like an adult should act. So you have to get a surrogate parent. Again, I bet people will line up in church if you go to the elders in the church and say, I'm not done being parented, but I do not have a parent who currently has the capacity to parent me. Will you be a mentor for me? Because you are already at the phase where you are independent now, building the foundation of the family that will one day be yours. But you cannot build that on hurt. You cannot build a new family on the hurt of the past. So you will almost have to cut and move on with somebody who can parent you. We cannot parent parents. All right, our time is up, people. That's what this alarm was about, which I didn't know how to switch off. My prayer for you is that at least one of these keys will find a new place in your family, and I will still be hanging around for a little bit if you wanted to pray together, have a discussion. Some of the evergreen facilitators, if you are here, if you would join me in dealing with the parents who have questions. I'm going to have a team with me because I know they are here, and they're going to help you from the same principles and answer your questions. Thank you so much.